Let's go now to Volkan Sevilgen. He's Chief Technology Officer and co-founder at Temblor. He joins me now from San Francisco, California. Volkan, appreciate you appearing here on the program. So your company, Temblor, specializes in seismic hazard and risk assessment. What's your take on the scale of the damage you've seen in both Turkey and Syria?
Thank you. The problem with this earthquake is the very large magnitude 7.8 earthquake occurred, and followed by a, again, very large magnitude 7.5 earthquake 9 hours after to the buildings that's been already heavily damaged. So that's exacerbated the damage and fatalities. And I don't think we still yet to have the final numbers, but the pictures are looking very grim.
So are you suggesting there's very little that can be done when it comes to a powerful earthquake followed by an almost equally powerful aftershock?
This is one thing that we call it like a worst case scenario. You normally look like try to figure out whether you can solve your fragility issues with the buildings with a one large earthquake. But once that one large earthquake and then you have another giant earthquake, then that really significantly imagine you are in a boxing match and then you are about to fall down and then one final punch, and that final punch was the magnitude 7.5 earthquake. Nevertheless, this means by no means this should have occurred in terms of the damage to the cities, and that also shows some lack of building inspections and lack of code implementation and lack of preparations.
You know, we're looking at these pictures, Volkan, and it's people have been asking. We see some buildings completely collapse, others standing. They all in the area seem to look the same. What makes some buildings more susceptible than others?
Well, it could. A lot of things can play a large role, but one important thing is could be the building quality, could be the building, how the buildings were built, how the building was designed. But sometimes it's based on the probability of buildings experiencing that level of shaking failing. But none of the building codes in the world would foresee building collapses. That's the main goal for the building codes. Buildings shouldn't collapse. Yes, maybe they should be unusable, but total collapse of the buildings, as we are seeing the pancake style, that part is very unexpected in terms of properly applied building codes and properly performed building inspections.
Volkan, I understand you shared a map with us that detail how things played out. Just walk us through what we're about to see here.
So I have shared a couple of maps. One of them shows the main shock magnitude 7.8 main shock and how it's related to magnitude 7.5 triggered earthquake. So this magnitude 5 point, if you stick with the first image, if that's possible, yes, that one, if you can hold that one, if it's possible. So what we are seeing here is what is called Coulomb stress change. What we are able to do is we can calculate stress transfer based on the main shock to see how this earthquake could trigger or inhibit failures in surrounding faults. And what you are seeing in the white stars, 6 February 2023, that magnitude 7.8 earthquake transfer increased stress alongside the end of the faults, and also it increased stress on the northwestern and western and southeastern trend. And one of those lobes, on the northern lobe, we had magnitude 7.5 earthquake 9 hours later. So this shows you we are getting quite good in terms of forecasting aftershocks and triggered events, but our problem is forecasting the main shock.
Volkan, we keep hearing a lot about the idea that tectonic plates and faults need to release stress. Can you just break down a bit what exactly are you referring to? What makes the tectonic plates move, and why is there stress buildup that needs to be released eventually?
Very good question. So if you think world as a whole, what we are calling is in the mid-oceans, we have it's called mid-oceanic rift. So these are the places that a hot magma comes to the surface, to the seafloor, and then pushes the plate sideways as the material, the hot lava, constantly coming to the surface and pushes the plate. And then when you are pushing the plate in one side, what happens is when the plate meets another plate, whichever plate is older will go under that plate. So the older plate would be much denser. So think about the Earth crust looks solid, but it's actually made up with a bunch of plates, and that plates are constantly in movement. In Turkey's perspective, what makes Turkey so seismically active is Turkey is being pushed between Arabian Peninsula, Arabian plate and Eurasian plate in both sides. So if you look at this figure, both East Anatolian Fault and North Anatolian Fault are the boundaries of that movement. And Turkey is essentially like a watermelon seed being pushed by the Arabian plate in the south and Eurasian plate on the north. And Turkey is in constant movement, 10 millimeter or 20 millimeter per year towards Greece. And that's what drives the East Anatolian Fault, the quake that occurred in the East Anatolian Fault, or the North Anatolian Fault, which is the famous fault that ruptured in the most spectacular dominoes that we ever seen, starting from 1939 and until the 1999 Düzce earthquake. It ruptured 5 separate events, 20, 30 years apart, and created the most spectacular earthquake interaction sequence that we ever seen.
And so, Volkan, this magma pushing these plates together or apart, depending on where you look, releases stress. How does all of this affect nearby plates? For example, is Istanbul sitting on a different plate? Do we expect that because of this stress release in the Anatolian plate that we will expect a stress release in the Eurasia plate? Explain how surrounding plates will be affected in either the near or distant or medium future based on what's happened over the past day.
Earthquake usually interacts via two main way. One of them is the what we are calling is the deformation way, or the static Coulomb stress, is where because of the fault deformation, how the fault slips and then creates a deformation zone around it, and that makes some areas around that rupture more likely to rupture next, or some areas would be less likely to rupture next because the movement actually lock their movement. It's not favoring that fault to be moving anymore.
I have one more question. Go
Sure.
right ahead. I just have a quick question for you, Volkan, before we let you go. A lot of stress, based on what you're saying, has been released over the past 24 hours or so. I know this is not going to be an easy question for you to answer. I don't know if you can answer it, but people are asking, based on what's happened, can we expect another huge earthquake in the region anytime soon?
So, as you prefaced it, it's a difficult question to answer. However, what we know is magnitude 7.8 earthquake and magnitude 7.5 earthquake already occurred. So these are very, very large earthquakes. So even if we had earthquake in the same size, that's already a bad enough scenario for us. So I don't think we need to worry about much larger earthquake than this because we have already experienced a huge earthquake, and that doesn't mean that we won't have larger events. But I think, given the level of how difficult it is to recover from these events, that quake, maybe we shouldn't even worry about it at this point.
All right. I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate hearing that. We appreciate the conversation, Volkan Sevilgen of Temblor, which is an organization that specializes in seismic hazard and risk assessment. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.